Sam Ewen from CoinDesk Studios. I am joined right now by Max Lenderman of Platinum Balloon, which is a consultancy that really advises brands on how to sort of best enter Web3. So I thought it'd be great for us to just like have a conversation about what you're seeing in the space, your own personal journey, and sort of the moment that we're in. Let's have a discussion about that. So first, why don't you kind of intro yourself and let's have a chat.
Thanks. I love this bouquet between us.
It's like the old days.
It's flagrant, pungent. I started Platinum Balloon because of curiosity, first and foremost. And my entire career has been focused on brand experience, experiential marketing, customer experience. I flirt between chief creative officer and chief experience officer pretty interchangeably, which I do think a really good CXO or CCO should be doing anyway. During the pandemic, I was in the rabbit hole, as many of us was in and had a lot of time to think, and had a lot of time to ask myself, does the world need another agency? And I, pretty quickly said no. But I was also witnessing a world that was opening up in possibilities that needed Sherpaing or guidance or some sort of entry point in order to make sense of it all. And so Platinum Balloon was born out of that, is how can brands create experiences both in real life, IRL, but also in URL, because they're not as interchangeable as they seemingly are. And so coming even here to CES and witnessing just how much interest brands have in new technologies, it's obvious that they're already enthralled and intrigued and sometimes maybe even threatened by what the Web3 world is presenting to them. But if the curiosity for them is as strong as the curiosity was for me 2.5 years ago, then I think we're into a fantastic future for Web3 from a brand perspective.
So we've seen a lot of brands in the last bunch of months sort of dive in a much more significant way, right? We have Starbucks with their Odyssey project, Swoosh with Nike. Salesforce is upstairs right now talking about building it into a SaaS platform, the ability to mint and create community. What do you think is sort of the true unlock that Web3 and like kind of the blockchain allow brands if they do it correctly?
The real true unlock, which eventually will be quantifiable, but right now it's a qualifiable thing, is trust. I was at an earlier panel at Brand Innovators, and the CMO, long-standing CMO of MasterCard, I won't try to, try to pronounce his name. Raja, yeah. Is on record saying that for them, for MasterCard, and for most brands of the future, their most valuable asset is going to be consumer trust. Can consumers trust us? And I think what Web3 is kind of giving us a blueprint, or at least an inkling of, community and collaboration and transparency and authenticity and verification. All those things are instrumental in building trust. Now, the key thing, as Raja also said, the paradox to building trust is you can't talk about it. If you talk about it, you seem a lot less trustworthy than if you don't talk about it. You just do the thing, right? So in that regard, you see some brands jumping into Web3 potentially with the intention of hype, or just being modern, and showing shareholders and their audiences that they get them, right, and they want to be. And there's others who are taking a much more measured and trust-building approach to get to that brand qualification of I'm a trustworthy brand. And I think that is really the thing ultimately that Web3 can give to all brands if they use it properly.
Let me try to unpack that a little bit, because I think some of us who are kind of core crypto talk about this idea of so much of crypto exists on a trust minimized ledger. So you don't have the demographic information, right? You have someone signing a wallet transaction, and that's your kind of gateway in. So is the trust, in your opinion, that because I hold a token, because I bought into a community, and therefore I want us all to rise? Like, where is the trust that we're seeing, and how should we measure that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is the collaboration, right, or the participation, right? That there's a sense of a stake, and a sense of a voice, right? And I think we've talked about in modern marketing practices a two-way conversation, whereas traditional advertising marketing is always like a one-way shouting match. Whereas technology and social has opened up a two-way conversation. Well, this is really a two-way relationship now, not just a conversation. So there's things that could be exchanged and transacted beyond words or content or information. I think that's the first thing. I think the second thing is, I think brands are looking at the world in a bifurcated way in terms of built. All right, one is growth and performance, and the other is brand equity. Right? And I think for growth and performance, brands have already been looking into crypto adoption and taking crypto payments. And they're like, cool, we're opening up new channels. We can grow more markets. Let's do that. But to do the brand equity piece, right? They're starting to look at the community, right? The NFT bills, like what is the value that we're bringing rather than the value that we're extracting? And if that's the intention to bring value, then there's a reception to it. When it's an extractive, it's a flash in the pan, and we see some things that don't go off as well as we think they're going to go off.
So much of what you're doing right now is educating brands, agencies, sort of other collectives into the Web3 space. What do you very simply, what do you think are the things that they need to know, without giving away too much of your special sauce, in order to consider why Web3 is something to be in your marketing toolkit?
Great question. I think the first thing is, and this comes from more of my purpose background, right? Is what is your intention, right? Is what is it that you want to accomplish? I also think being measured is something that we talk about really consistently, in that there's a lot of players. There's credibility is being built up. I think what CoinDesk does for the community, for the industry, is provide credibility that is sorely needed. And so racing into things with, I'm not going to say the wrong partners, but the wrong fit partners is a huge watch out. So a measured approach, a calculated approach filled with insight and knowledge and conversation and collaboration to get to that intention plan. I think that's where we're focusing right now. Is the build and the tooling is there. But how you use that tool, right? Like a hammer could be something that carves a beautiful statue, or it's something that bashes in, a skull. So like how you use it is really, really important, and a measured approach to it right now is what we're advising. So
in your opinion, are brands sort of needing to sort of figure out, one, not to just play the hype cycle, because a lot of them seem to be doing that. But really, it's about kind of the right way to engage your community. I think that's where I sort of wonder. I talk to brands all the time where I'm like, if you're releasing an NFT to make money, you're never going to make enough money to justify this on a brand level. I had a conversation yesterday for our podcast with Spencer Gordon from Anheuser-Busch. They made a couple $1 million was made on the secondary sales for their Budweiser NFTs. But for Budweiser, that is not even a drop in the pool, right?
Right.
So for him, though, I think it really was about the loyalty play of how do I become more and more of an insider with the brands I love. Right. And I think we've seen that with the NFT space. I feel like you've also, more than most, gone into kind of the DAO side.
Yes.
And why do you think that sort of DAOs, or what problem do DAOs help to solve, perhaps for a brand?
Well, I think it's a great question. So to get it even a little granular, a lot of brands right now talk about their purpose, right? Or at least their why, or their ethos, or who their core community is. We understand our core. And then there are DAOs. There are literally those communities out there that would love their support, right? And not just financially, but again, the value that they can give is opening doors, collaborative doors, funding new things that are not just extractive for messaging sake, but have a longer tail vision to it. And I think listening and participating is a muscle memory that a lot of brands don't exercise. And that's why participating in DAOs can get them back into that muscle memory because from there you can have innovation pipelines. From there you can have communication pipelines. You can have retention strategies and loyalty strategies, et cetera. And so DAOs is becoming instrumental or valuable members of DAOs is a really great way for brands to start that listening. On the flip side, brands do a lot of IRL stuff, right? They do a lot of things out there where there's Web3 tools that are becoming really interesting in terms of POAPs or et cetera, where you are rewarding the engagement and the kind of participatory nature of IRL events and extending that experience beyond the event itself, and creating that dialogue again. You know, something that I'm not very particularly sound on, but the notion of zero-party data and the way that people are willing, particularly in Web3 communities, when they see the passion and the activity of that community, how willing they are to give parts of themselves, not just information about themselves, but literally their time that they could be spending doing something else. They give their life to some of these communities. My gosh, if you can be part of that kind of intention and volition with your core audiences, your real audiences, I mean, the value of that is astronomical. Why would you need to go to an agency in order to figure out what the community really needs?
And I mean, you and I both come out of the experiential sort of marketing world, and for me, I'm so fascinated by the idea that we have gone this long without a token gated asset as a thing that gets you into the event that's earned from loyalty, right? But you mentioned POAPs, for example. What a great example of, you know, rewarding someone for just showing up and then giving them future life, right? Totally. Is that something that you know you see as a true unlock? I mean, there's a physical digital hybrid already. But where does your mind go with that?
The loyalty element is astronomical. You know, tokens to me are like probably the best loyalty tool ever invented, with the jankiest front end user experience, like the UI, right? Like the whole connect your wallet, and you're like you know. So the mechanics are there, right? And the understanding of how to use those mechanics amongst experiential agencies or event marketing agencies or CES itself have not caught up, right? And I think one of the things is also to your earlier question about what we talk about is it's okay, take a breath. You don't have to, like, you know, there's a lot to take in. And knowledge gathering and immersion into the space is a key component to calming down, right? Taking a breath and really starting to strategize your next 3, 5, 7, 10 years of how to use these tools. But at the very least, every single IRL activation at this point should be having some sort of digital interplay that connects us to another ecosystem and also unlocks a community for those people that may have not have been able to connect IRL, but then are carried over into a URL community where more things can blossom. I think that's a huge miss that brands are participating in, not creating that IRL URL ecosystem better.
So my final question is, you know, we're in a bit of a down market in crypto and NFTs, but it feels like brands are the ones who are now launching and building more than ever. Is this, you know, why do you think that they're coming out at a time where maybe the hype isn't as much as it was 6 months ago or a year ago?
You know, without speculating too much, but I'm sure the Starbuckses and well, let's just say Starbucks. I'm not going to go into the Nike world, but maybe Adidas and those, you know, they were working on stuff long before we knew that they were. CoinDesk knew about it, but you know, us, myself, didn't know about it. So I think it's a natural kind of a pipeline blossoming. But I also do see that there are some CMOs who are taking bets, and the same way that there's some CMOs in Web 1 who took bets and came out ahead and made careers and now speak on the main stage at CES for $100K a pop. So there are CMOs and there are CEOs that are seeing the bigger picture. And they're also been talking about brands as innovation centers for a long time. And now they finally have technology at scale that they can actually start talking the talk of, like, oh, we actually are an innovative brand, or we do cool things. I think now they finally have the tools and the reception from a curious audience of what they could do with that.
Great. Max, thank you so much for spending time with us.
A pleasure, Sam.
Max Lenderman from Platinum Balloon. We'll see you later.